So, out beyond Mount Island, out beyond the Eye of Sauron on Parking Hill that keeps us all awake all night, those of us who sleep on the Getty, out further even than the Two Chucks will go are the Pennsic Woods, walled by dense-packed spruce, with a nave pillared by the mighty Scots pine, the lofty flowering cherry, the plucky little aspen, the limping rue tree of Nigeria, the towering wattle of Aldershot, the lots of other trees, all forming a canopy arching over the forest floor, a veritable cathedral of kicking ass, the church. And since we can't be there in person today, we'll go there tonight on Fighting the World. I'm Wistrick.
And I'm Bruce. And we're joined tonight by two panelists near and dear to my heart. Vindis from the Mid, or I'm sorry, Master Vindis.
It's Vindis is better, so.
Yeah, I do. And Doña Magdalena from the East.
Good evening.
So usually, if you've joined us before, I'd have you introduce yourselves, but since you are both my households, just from separate kingdoms, I had to introduce you myself. And for everyone's FYI, that intro photo is actually from an album of very beautiful woods battle photos from Ron Lutz. It's absolutely amazing work, and you should definitely go check it out. I was definitely not looking at them and pining while I was writing up this episode this week. But if you didn't guess, we're going to talk today about the Pennsic Woods Battle because it is my favorite. I think it's Wistrick's favorite. I know it's these two's favorite. So we're all really sad we can't be there. And so I'm going to open the floor to my first question. What does the scenario typically look like in the woods?
After you.
Okay. So the woods is, capture the flag possession battle. So generally we have, in the simplest of scenarios, which tends to be my preference, we have several flags somewhere out in the middle of the woods. Typically it's been 3. They're stationary flags that may or may not actually be flags that have some kind of indication of which side has possession of them. Through the scenario, there will be some sort of time check at some point. Often there are time windows given where, okay, we're going to check who has possession of this flag sometime between 12 and 17 minutes or something like that. And we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And when we get into that time window, it gets a little crazy and people try to gain possession of their particular flags.
That was awesome. That was exactly what I was going to
Vigorously.
say.
Vigorously, yeah.
And we can tell who's on command staff and who's not.
Yeah, I'm just a dirty skirmisher in the woods. So.
Well, that's definitely a perspective, and I think that's kind of wild and adventurous, just like the woods battles tend to be. So, Magdalena, I'm going to pick your brains a little bit here. You talked about how it was a capture the flag scenario. Sometimes it's flags, sometimes it's those damn flippy sticks that we're not going to talk about. But has that scenario changed based on the location, which we're going to get into a little bit more, so don't worry too much about new woods versus old woods. But has that scenario changed at all based on where we're at and what direction we're fighting?
Yes and no. I mean, I think for the most part, at least for the past, however many years since we're back in the new old woods, whatever where we are right now, where you walk out past, the N blocks as opposed to the B blocks. A lot of times the flags, they're more or less, kind of 3 that go across the middle of the battlefield somehow. I definitely remember times where maybe they weren't necessarily in a straight line across. I definitely remember when we were out by the B blocks. maybe less familiar with exactly where they were then, but maybe not quite as close and quite as obvious. I think those were a little bit more sprawly, but it also depended on where exactly they set up in those woods, because there wasn't one set location.
Don't sweat the details too much. I'm going to actually jump over to Vindis. So you've described the scenario really well, Magdalena, which is we're going to go capture some flags and play swords in the woods with our friends, which is the best part about the woods battle. But Vindis, your perspective as a skirmisher, what do these woods battles look like?
Well, it's a chance to be a problem solver and a problem causer. And I basically get to be a fire and forget missile. It's amazing. I love it. Our commanders trust me and the guys that I run with enough just to say, go in that direction and do something, and we'll get it done most of the time. So, and that's what I like. It helps me hone in my situational awareness, and it really makes me think more than any other battle at Pennsic.
So our wonderful tech people have brought up, thanks Nikon, have brought up the map of the new old woods, which is where the woods battles are currently taking place. When I first joined the SCA 10 years ago, we were not in the new old woods, we were in the new woods. But based on this map, the two little black squares are going to be the res points for the two sides, and usually we'll be fighting down the middle of the map, kind of where you see those two lines of trees and the paths. So
did you start when we had too much woods? Okay.
No such thing.
See, I'd like to say now we have two little woods.
I just remember the too much woods because I'd go through the woods and I couldn't find anyone to fight sometimes.
Well, I remember there were one time when we were out by the B blocks that literally I accidentally stumbled upon the other side's res. Like, I really had no idea where I was. And then all of a sudden we're like, all the marshals are like, back up. And we're like, oh, and they're like, you're at the other res. And we're like, oops.
I loved that about those woods.
Well, we're back. But
I have opinions about the woods. And
so we're all here.
Wait. Well, yeah. While we're talking about it, Wishnik, what's your opinion here? We've talked about being a problem solver, a problem causer. We've talked about the scenario. We have a beautiful picture.
So this woods, I think, I guess up until just 10 years ago, it had been used a lot and used by Heavy and Rapier and gamed a little. And I think things became kind of repetitive. So they switched to the B block woods, which were big and overgrown and just carpeted in poison ivy, which led to all sorts of stories, not related to fighting. And things like, crawling through the trees and popping out, and suddenly there being like the enemy res point, and you were just trying to return to your army. So it was chaos, and I love chaos. Then they narrowed down the old new woods to a smaller area that was pretty cool, pretty good. But then I think all of that they decided to abandon and moved everything back to the old new woods, this map here, which they had threatened to start fracking on, but I guess they decided not to. Yay. But by then it had grown thick again, and the ground was crap, like huge ruts. And so all of the sort of gamification, all of the terrain had been altered, and all of the sort of easy mode parts of just, running down the middle of a cathedral were no longer quite there. And so it was exciting. It was fun. It was new. About last time I was there was 3 years ago. And Ask Chat. It's that story. That was the last time I got to fight in the woods. You're muted. unless you're talking to Trap right now.
No, I'm not.
Okay. we can understand if you're asking,
Yeah, I'm shouting at Trap behind the privacy screen, so you don't have to see his shirtless body behind me. No, wow, that is my first time actually having done that. So now we have fulfilled the bingo card. You're
the
on
whole
mute.
pandemic without muting yourself in a meeting? Really?
I know, I did really, really
Because
well.
that was like this morning for me.
Did really, really well, and now I'm mad. Anyway, so now we've talked about the new woods, we've talked about the old woods, we've talked about some of the reasons we've swapped, aka they were possibly going to do some fracking, ground bees, and poison ivy. But that kind of brings me into my next question. So what are some of the logistical issues that we see in planning a woods battle? We've talked about how big the field is, how small the field is. What makes a good woods battle?
I think one of the things that's really nice about the woods battle is that there is no place you can stand and be able to see everybody, which is what really sets it apart from, a field battle or even a town battle where you can pretend you're in a wall, you can pretend you're behind something, but really you turn around and you can see that entire field. We're in the woods. There really is no place where you can see the entire thing. And so having to actually rely, on your traffic cops, rely on your various commanders, rely on people reporting what is going on becomes much more important when we're in the woods. It's depending on how it's set up, you may have more or less information at any given time. What it's been kind of since we've been back in these woods, generally from most places, if you're kind of near where that flag line is, you can usually see 2 flags, but you cannot see the third. Sometimes if you're up in the middle and you're lucky and you're tall, not like me, you might be able to see maybe both flags by kind of darting around that middle flag back and forth. But, if you're at flag 1 or flag 3, you're not going to know what's going on at the other flag, which, lends a little bit of more, gamifying to it. You need to think about, how are we counting the points in this scenario? Does it matter? Do I have the majority flags at any time? Does it matter the total time flags I have at the various time checks and it's just additive? So paying attention to what that scoring mechanism is on any given woods, because it's not always the same year to year, adds that extra layer as well.
Man, our panelists are too good, Wistrich. You're already diving into my 3rd and 4th question.
No, she's really good.
Yeah. Hey, Vindis, I'm about to
put
you out too. Thank you, Magdalena. That was an excellent answer and definitely helps with thinking about the scenario itself. I know from my perspective, having done the woods walks now, I would say the last 2 years, but because 2020 is gone and 2021 hasn't happened, so the 3-4 years ago, some of the other logistics we definitely run into have been weather. I know, I don't want to think about it.
I don't think we would have had woods this year. It's just been so much rain, constantly.
Yeah.
Mud pit out there.
And that's another definite consideration. The weather, the woods, the bees. I definitely already saw in the comments from Facebook, thanks Mirabai, about the ground bees, which is another reason we have had to change the scenario in the past. We've also had to change the scenario because royalty just didn't like the woods and some of the aspects of the woods, like being able to get behind other people's lines. Who knew? So I just wanted to kind of talk about the logistics of creating a play scenario for that. We've had make or breaks in the past here on this channel, talking about what makes a good scenario and what makes a bad one. So I guess my next question is, how do you win this scenario? is it possible to game this scenario, which we know it is because someone already mentioned the fact that it was gamed to death in the old New Woods? In the
Optimize, I think, is yeah.
So I want to hear about that from our two panelists. I'm going to start with Vindis because Vindis likes to do that. I don't have anything important to say. I'm just a skirmisher. But Vindis, how do you win this fight? What is a winning woods battle to you?
Well, are we talking about like the actual, goal of the war point, or how do I have fun in the woods and my people have fun in the woods?
Let's talk about both. So
Okay.
First, let's talk about winning the war point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty simple plan most years, and that is get the flag, hold the flag, keep at least 15 to 20 feet in front of the flag so we have plenty of space to move around. And just hold it the whole time. We send our skirmishers out to intercept people coming in, and it's pretty simple, in my opinion, but it's a lot harder in practice.
All right. And how do you, well, you know what? I'm going to save this question for later because it's already on my outline about why do we love the woods? Why do we hate it? What makes us cringe? All of that. But I would definitely like you to hold on to your personal answer about what makes a winning woods.
All
right. Magdalena, as command staff for the East, what makes a winning woods for the war point itself?
What makes
the
a winning woods?
strategy?
I mean, yeah, I was kind of laughing because a lot of what he said is very, very similar. Get out there, get the flags, and think about where you're standing. Don't stand right on the flags. You got to be in front of them, so that way, there is one thing that he didn't mention that often is thought about in these command meetings is when do you give up on a flag? When do you say, okay, this is why, knowing which scenario we're in, are we counting every flag all the time, or are we counting the majority? Especially if you're counting that majority at a given point. Do you need to have 2 out of 3? There's no reason, to have 3 necessarily. Obviously, you want to be thinking about, is one of these flags going to fall? In which case, having that extra one as a backup, sure. But, I clearly have this flag. I clearly have that flag. Let's keep these flags and forget about that other one. Let's let the mid-realm have their fun at that flag, and let's forget about that because we want to hold these 2 flags that we have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I think the second year we were at the new woods after they'd cut it down in half. I think the numbers were like 3-2 against us. So we're just gonna leave that upper ridge alone. We're just gonna put a cursory force up there, and we're gonna focus on the tree line and this more open area here.
Yeah, so the complication comes when, getting that back to your res line, getting that back to, your traffic cops, getting it back to whoever that you're like, okay, we're purposely not sending, that many people to this flag, even though your unit may have originally been assigned to always go right or whatever, right now, that's not your thing. Okay. Send 1 of every 3 people that way. And just to, keep the other side honest, make sure no one's getting around in the backfield, make sure there's not going to be any, a big push from the side that's just going to roll up the whole line. But, making sure that gets communicated to whoever is back there sending people in various directions. Because, again, coming off of res, you cannot see what's going on at those flags. So what might have been your orders even 3 minutes before might not be what's going on by the time you get back there.
That's one of the things I love about it so much. That's why it engages so much in my brain when I'm out there, because a traffic cop will be like, we need you here. And then you'll be like, oh, crap, that's not where I really need to be right now. Because there's horrible things about to happen, so I need to go here instead. Yeah. So much fun.
I love this scenario, too. And I love that it changes from year to year as to whether or not we're counting all of the flags or if we're counting 2 out of 3 is 1 point, vice versa, which is definitely what Magdalena was getting into about gaming the game. So, Wistrick, it sounds like both of our panelists agree that you have to know your scenario and your objective, which is something we might have talked about before. Almost like it's integral to Melee.
Gosh.
Weird.
It's the 4th The fourth thing you teach somebody after how to not die and how to.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's know your people, though, is part of it, too. You know, you're always going to have that person that just, like, wants to go out there and stab a lot, you know, go out, be completely rogue. And you know what? That's fine. Like, yeah, it's fine. Like, we need those people. They're great distractions. They take out people. They create openings. And know the people who are going to be the person you can be like, you're going to stand. They have that flag down there, but we need somebody to just stand there and do nothing for a little bit so they don't completely wrap our line. Know who's going to have the patience to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And relieve them. Don't leave them there for half an hour.
It's definitely why we don't put. hey! It's definitely why we don't put crap on the objective. Like, we know better. But anyway, I have to say this real quick. Dr. Jones!
Yeah.
Best cat.
He's adorable.
Anyway, so that kind of answers what I was going to ask next, damn you. But let's reiterate for a second, because we've talked about how to win the scenario. Is the scenario breakable? And how would you break it?
Geez, I've never actually really thought of that because I'm having too much fun doing it.
Which is something I appreciate about the woods battle. Like, it's not like the field battle where you're sitting there, like, watching people and trying to make it as fast as possible. Everyone has fun in the woods. So,
I mean, there are some people that don't have fun in the woods, but we don't talk about them.
They don't want joy in their lives. Or they have really bad lower body joints, which I understand. More and more these days.
True. It's very true. It is the terrain in there is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I think that's like really the only thing. I've seen people like abuse terrain to their advantage in the past, but that's really, you know, like a one-off kind of thing. That's not going to win the war, and you can just ignore them half the time. So
definitely have not seen a squire hanging by his belt because he got a little too aggressive in the wood from a tree. But okay, I want to hear from our two panelists, but Wistrick is our resident game breaker. Wistrick, how would you break the scenario in the woods, or have you thought of that?
So there are looking to the example of the woods battle rules that you found, Bruce, the one involving the chests.
Oh yes, that. Okay, I forgot about that.
That one's super breakable.
Yes.
I'll let you talk about what you guys thought, and then we can talk about kind of what our thoughts were on some of those.
So just a warning to the people joining us on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are watching us right now. The scenario that I pulled for the woods for Wistrick to look over and refresh, because we love Wistrick. He's a skirmisher. He likes
people like tell me what the scenario is, and I go.
But the
Winds lay on.
The scenario I pulled was the woods battle from the last Pennsic that we held, in which they tried to implement a fourth objective. So you had flags 1, 2, and 3, and the fourth objective was a treasure chest on either side of the map that could be removed from the area and moved into an area for a point. If you guarded that treasure chest, it was a good idea. If you didn't guard that treasure chest, it was still a good idea. And it added an element of complexity to the game. So, Wistrick, how would you break it? What are your thoughts? And then I want to hear from Magdalena, who I know was in the command meetings, and they definitely had some conclusions that we did in the mid as well.
A stupid amount of value in stacking everybody who can run faster than 10 miles an hour in a, like, go grab the chest. Because once you got the chest, that's like half done, pretty much. And then you can stack the rest of your army on one flag. And everybody else, It's what the rule is. You can't have it within 75 feet of your own start res line. And of course, now that I've closed the map, it's like a good 300-foot long space, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh no, more than that. What's
I have to admit, I have not
hypotenuse
actually
of-
looked at that scenario probably since we ran it.
Yeah.
Since
I missed that one because I had a 6-month-old. And
when
like,
when it came down to it,
damn.
yeah, no,
'Cause-
yeah, no, that's fair. That's a reason to miss it.
But no, like
Yeah,
this is one where like it's not just the
wait,
usual. It's not this.
District, let our panelists talk.
Okay. I'm really good at talking over everyone. It's okay. Just if I needed to shut him up, I would.
Got you.
Yeah, I mean that was the right call. You needed to get that box as fast as possible, but we also had the one. And again, this is where depending on how the point value stacked, it wasn't that much in this particular scenario. But if they had set it up to be more valuable, maybe there would have been worth putting more people into it. But basically, the idea was like, let's go out, let's get it to where it needs to go. Great. But there's a small team on that. And then if we don't get it, sorry, fuck it. Don't get it. Fuck it. Like, whatever. This is the woods battle. We're here to fight in the woods. We're going to keep those flags. They were still worth more points overall. Again, if there was something weird going on in the balance, it could definitely tip it. But the focus was, this is the flags. We can get more points with these flags. If we can get the chest, great. If we can get to where it needs to be, great. If not, it's not why we're here.
I just remember us hunting for one of those chests for way too long, being like, we really suck at hide and seek. This was horrible.
I'm pretty sure, we just kind of, now I'm trying to remember, because I definitely remember talking about taking it back and hiding it, but then it needed to be delivered somewhere also, and then do we take it there and just leave it there and guard it?
I appreciate Wistric's stance on this because it was spoken like a true Atlantean, even though he's Meridian now, because we had Atlantia that year speaking. This is Bruce the Midrealmer on Midrealm Command. We had Atlantia this year, or that year, and sent all of the speedy, runny people to try to find it. And as Vindis said, yeah, we sucked at hide and seek.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to fight through and get it. It really was that you needed to get it right away or not. There was just not really I mean, anything's possible. Weird things happen. Lines break in weird ways.
Mm-hmm.
Things can go chaotic. But generally, you're not really getting crazy back. Maybe you get one or two people back there, but you're not going to get enough people to get that chest and actually bring it back in all likelihood. Again,
Right.
There's always exceptions, but I don't think we had any of that.
Yeah,
Back when I lived in Atlantia, which was 8 years ago now, or more. Even then, I needed a guide dog. Like, I prided myself on being on the run team, but I'd be behind like Benjamin Wheeler, Ben DeLille, and Torse, and those guys because they were younger, and I'd just be like, I'm gonna go where they go, and if they aren't, like, it's really easy to not see stuff in woods. And
I mean, again, I think depending on, hopefully, I mean, I assume this is probably the case with everyone, that at least, there was somebody out on that team that kind of walked around. I definitely remember seeing like, oh, this is where a box where it needs to go. This is where, and then of course I was like, I don't run. I don't have anything to do with this. And it kind of got filed away somewhere. There was random spray paint on the ground about where you could take things and not take things. And I just didn't really devote a lot of brain power to it.
So Yeah, and speaking of weird line breaks, with that scenario for us, we had some very strange line breaks because, of course, our king at the time was like 7 feet tall and decided he had to hang out with the chest. So people kind of knew where it was. So we ended up putting entirely not too many. We put just enough people in front of it so that they couldn't catch it. But the line breaking was happening at weird places because usually in the woods, at least from my experience, both being a skirmisher who gets bored and goes wandering places, and also now being on command staff and having people yell at me, was usually you see the most milling kind of to the left or the right or directly in front of a flag. And during that fight, it was like a wiggle worm across the entire.
Oh yeah, it was crazy right there.
Yep. And it was a lot of bubbles and popping the bubbles, which is what makes me happy about the woods. So anyway,
yeah, like that's the best part.
I didn't say crazy.
When like you're like, oh, I'm pushing the enemy back, I'm pushing the enemy back, I'm pushing the enemy back, and you look through the line of spruce trees that's on your left, and you realize that there are 5 people from the enemy line who have just turned and who have been watching you walk past them, and are like, keep going.
Is that me? That was me. Well, that segues us perfectly into my next question. So we've talked about breaking the scenario. We've talked about shifting our forces for time counts, just depending on what the actual scenario and objective is. And your cat is so cute. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. Based on what the actual objective or scenario is and what a typical woods battle looks like, which is kind of a mill of bodies heading towards 3 flags. And when you know there might be a time check, so about a 10-minute window, it gets really fun. The marshals.
No, like on the mid-realm side, because I know y'all are going to be the ones doing this.
Who handed out stopwatches to the entire command staff? It was not me. They're cursed, by the way, those stopwatches. They're definitely karmic, and at least 4 of them had broken timers and beeped like hell and had to live in my tent. So they definitely came back to bite me in the ass. But every one of our regional commanders and XOs and COs, so commanders and the I don't want to use the phrase drop dead, but the second in command would all have stopwatches. And when Leon started, everyone clicked their stopwatch and would take a look. Now, that being said, not everyone's very good at checking their stopwatches during the heat of battle, especially in the woods when it's really fun. And sometimes stopwatches get stuck on trees. But in general, it helped us to time out and communicate when things needed to be pushed, because like Magdalena said earlier, you need more communication in the woods. You can't just raise your swords or raise a flag or whatever to say things need to happen. You have to actually play telephone down the lines. You actually have to communicate. And it's one of the few battles where using someone, especially a newer person who's really enthusiastic but might be a little nervous about being on the line as a runner, is so important. So, yeah. Anyway, that was a lot of background for the mid-realm. We have stopwatches. I can't tell you how actually useful they were because I don't even know. We ended up They seem kind of redundant in the end.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't actually tell you. It would not surprise me we have several, but yeah, it's definitely not everybody. I'm definitely relying a lot on people being like, we're in the window. And again, like just assuming that it's not a secret. It's not, like everything else in the battle, you're not keeping secrets. Really just yell that command, put it out there. Let everyone know we're in the window. The other side knows that. You're
not being sneaky. Right. I mean, come on. The moment I joined Mid-Realm Command, I think Mid-Realm might have lost all its secrets, considering I camp in an Eastern camp that has a secret plan book. With markers for coloring in.
And crayons.
And crayons.
Wait. The East has the secret plan book?
Yeah.
Not the mid?
No.
You don't know about this secret plan book?
Oh, you know about the secret plan book, Wistrick. I think I
Wait, there's
said
not like it's the mid. Isn't there a secret plan binder with
There are like 4 binders,
5
okay?
copies?
I mean, our plan book is also a binder, but
I think it might have been one of the previous
it might be a little bit.
binders.
What? No, I know I bought that binder
You bought the binder? Okay.
because I happened to be on town run that day. When they're like, "We need a binder," I was like, "Okay."
But it has definitely made Melee better in general, trying not to keep those secrets and whatnot. And it makes communicating to your army much easier too when you're not like, pss, 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 10 minutes. Because people can't hear that on the field.
Especially in the woods where it's loud and chaotic, and you cannot just turn around and see what's going on. You need to actually yell it across and communicate, or have that, excited new person that runs up and down the line and is super excited.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, and seeing a comment on our YouTube feed, Liu, who was one of our exos for one of our regions here in the mid, actually took that stopwatch, put it in his armor, and then forgot about it. So as you can tell, super effective. Being super organized is
There's more important things to do, like stab people.
Right, exactly. All right, Wistrick, you had one more way you would break the woods. How is it?
Cardio.
Yeah, cardio.
I like, and I moved out of Atlantia 8 years ago, so I'm not talking about myself as an Atlantean, but back then, that generation of Atlanteans that started in the early 2000s and were all in their 20s when they started, were super proud of their conditioning. And if you have more people standing at the end of the battle, even if they had more people standing at the beginning of the battle, it's an hour and a half of like running uphill both ways through the woods. It's grueling. And yeah, like straight up just conditioning could decide who won.
Yeah, that's one of the things we started doing years ago after our summer practices, because we do them in a park, is at the end of practice, which usually includes a half hour to 45 minutes of melee, we go for a run. And it's a no man left behind run. So if you get to the end, you run back around to catch up with everyone else that hasn't caught up to you yet. And you don't finish until everyone's finished that point. And that cardio is nice. That's why.
You're doing it.
Yeah, like
Pandemic has killed all of that.
Oh yeah.
like this year, I took up running about 4 to 5 miles a day because I'm like, I want to be ready for fencing when I get back there. So I want to be able to run through the woods again. And it's been a nightmare. I hate it. But we started fencing again. I'm like, my heart rate's not getting up at all right now from just fencing.
So for everyone out there who wants to know how to cross train, look, some cardio. Look,
cardio.
Since it's relevant to this topic, the way I portion control is after my first Pennsic Woods battle, running up and down hills for like an hour and a half. I went back to work the next week and I went to the cafeteria and I went to order that slice of chocolate cake that I always got with lunch. And I thought about carrying that thing up and down. Like I thought about if I smeared that all over my stomach, not carrying it in my hand, just smear it all over my stomach. And then carry that up and down those hills in the woods for an hour and a half. And then do that with tomorrow's slice of chocolate cake. And the day after that. Oh my God, that chocolate cake does not taste that good. Like chocolate chip cookies. Oh hell yeah. But just about anything else is like, ooh, I don't want to carry that up those hills.
No, as like a nearly 300-pound dude, I like my desserts too much, so I'm just gonna increase my cardio until my heart explodes.
Also,
yeah, I like food
I
a little
can't
too
say
much.
I'm like 100% healthy on this. But there are I've narrowed it down to specific desserts that are totally worth hauling through those woods, no matter how long the battle lasts.
And now we know that Wistrick trains just for Pennsic Woods, and that's why he's probably not quite right in the head.
I mean,
legit like Pennsic, like the days at Pennsic where it's the heavy woods in the morning and the Rapier Woods in the afternoon, and so you go out there, fight for an hour and a half in heavy armor, and I fight spear, so I'm just killing people all the time. It's great, but also a lot of walking and running. And I crawl out because I can't even stand, and I take off my heavy armor, and they say, "Hey, let's go run," and I was like, I feel like I can fly because I'm not wearing heavy armor. And then I get to the end of that day, and I feel like past Wistrick, like the Wistrick of that morning, was this total dumbass. That is the reason I train. That day, it's great. It's the best day of the year. It's horrible.
Those otter pops at the end taste A+.
They're
the best.
Countess Kalisa of Atlantia would bring those out, and they made the war. But it was still just like, I need someone to peel me off of the ground if I'm going to go back to camp.
I'll say, maybe it's just because I've been around long enough at this point, and I feel like even when I was young and spry, I was never young and spry. I was always very slow. I prepare myself to go up and down those hills a bunch of times, but I'm like, I'm going to get myself out there. I'm going to last as long as possible. I mean, unless there's a push and we're really just out there to die, which has to happen sometimes. That's my motivation to stay alive. And I pace myself in such a way that I can keep going. Obviously, everyone has their own way of pacing themselves, or maybe needs to figure out their own way of pacing themselves, depending on, whether they've done this before. I know I'm not going to run up that hill. I'm not the run team. In fact, I'm pretty much never going to run up that hill unless they're like, yeah, we need to get that flag right this second. And even then, half the time, I'm like, I'm not going to get there in time. I'm just that slow. Even when I was in shape, I'm just that slow.
I'm not sure what it says maybe about our kingdom's conditioning as a whole, that I'm usually on a run team, but I'm not that fast. Okay.
but I'm going to keep going. My idea is that I plan to pace myself out that, and again, that doesn't mean I won't pull myself out every once in a while. I need to sit down for these 5 minutes. I need to do this. And I will pace myself so that way I'm there at the end. Like, I know that, okay, these are where our windows are. I don't want to be that person that everyone else is fading at 50 minutes or whatever the time scenario is. Like, I'm going to take my breaks. I'm going to pace myself up. I'm not going to run up the hill. I'll get back up there. I'll take that spot. I'm happy to be there. Put me in that corner where I am that one person at the flag that's just like, I know I'm not going to take this flag, but you're not going to come after me because, why? You already have the flag. I'm just standing there keeping you honest.
I'm absolutely the same way, Magdalena. And I don't think it helps us that our torsos come up to where their legs end.
Tiny legs. Very tiny legs.
But I have very short legs for my height, okay?
Yeah, you're still 6 feet tall.
Yeah, still bigger than my entire body.
So my Atlantean DNA was raised on, was it run to res, run back from res, rest behind the lines. But at the same time, you tell that to new fighters, and they just burn out immediately. Mm-hmm. Or people who don't get out and get all who it's like Pennsic is their only melee for the year. But that point of knowing how to pace yourself so you can make it through the 90 minutes or 2 hours or how 3 hours we can dream 90 minutes of battle is as much an important skill as cardio. I know I put cardio as the cheat, but knowing how to marshal your personal physical resources.
That's a part of cardio, though.
Yeah.
That's a part of portion control in your cafeteria, is understanding how to sustain through a long battle for your body, your mental health, your whatever, because a lot of the issues we see on the field, which we're going to get to, I hope, although this discussion has been great, even though it is not 100% my outline, Um, no, knowing that about yourself can help prevent martial discussions later, because a lot of the things we see are those blow-ups on the field when people have pushed their bodies too hard and their brains break. And they forget that, like, this isn't a real fight. These are your friends. This is a sport. This is a game, you know? So
that's why the cross training and knowing your limits are two of the most important things you can have when you're in a long battle, like the Woods Battle. So
yeah, back in another life, I don't know, and that I think going back to every once in a while, and then I realize how lazy I am, and that I used to do triathlons, and I'd be out there, doing these Olympic distance triathlons, and it would take me 4 hours, and the fastest people would be done in like an hour and a half. But I'm out there. I don't care if I'm that last damn person on the course. Like, this is what I've trained for. I can keep moving forward, and that's the way I work. I know I'm not necessarily going to be the fastest, but I train myself to keep going. And I don't want to say push through, because I don't want to ever encourage someone to push past their limits, because that's how we end up with people breaking, and this is how we end up with injuries. But figuring out how to kind of use your energy in the proper way, how to meet it out for you, which is going to be really different for everybody. There is no one way of doing it. And I know myself. If I go out there and I try to run, it's, real fast, doesn't mean I don't run, but I'm that, how to plod through that time. And that's kind of how I train to do things. So.
And it's an even larger consideration in the woods because of the terrain, et cetera. I mentioned the woods walk earlier. I mentioned some of the decisions to cancel the woods because of weather, et cetera. And what we're looking for on those woods walk, like, is how dangerous is the terrain? Are people going to hurt themselves trying to run up this hill or down this hill? Are people going to break themselves, their toys, their friends, whatever, trying to fight on slippery or poison ivy or bee nests? So there's just a whole bunch of logistics that go into this, not only for the woods itself and the scenario itself, but for the person. I know a lot of people, and we don't mention them here, who don't like the woods, but we're going to mention them for a minute. Part of that is knowing their own limits. Some of them just know they will not perform well in the woods. It could hurt them, etc. And do not, as much as this panel here and Wistrick and I love the woods, it is not worth hurting yourself or your friends over to go participate. But everyone should probably try it once, maybe. Unless you know for sure you're going to hate it. Or but
if you've never fought the woods before, you can if people are telling you to run back from res, you can ignore them. Walk carefully to res, from res. Engage your opponents when there's no trees behind them, no trees behind you. But get the experience of fighting in those woods. Just
you don't even have to fight it. Sometimes you can just go into the woods, walk right around the enemy line, and DFB some people. If you're not comfortable with it, you can be a runner on a line. I'm sorry, there might be a theme for my favorite thing in the woods.
Messages. I mean,
I'm going to take us in a little left turn here, because what I've actually found is, and I don't know if this is because it's, again, becoming more familiar again with these new old woods, becoming better armies, or better commanders, or there's just more people out there, that I feel like it's actually gotten harder, and especially when we line the flags right up in a line. We basically have a line that goes all the way across the woods, if you know the terrain, there are some open areas and there's some woody areas, but there really isn't any place that's completely secluded or hard to see or really hidden. And I think it's gotten a lot harder there to get behind those lines. Mm-hmm. There's no edge to sneak up. Everyone knows where the edges are. Everybody knows how far the line needs to extend across. We have enough people to go from flag to flag. It gets a little hairy around the road there. I think people probably know, people who are familiar with me know where I'm talking about, where the gap between the lower flag and the center one that sometimes is a little light, but it's never really unguarded. And it's gotten a lot harder to get around. It's a lot more organized. Again, I'm thinking it's both numbers and the fact that we're better armies. Because I definitely remember more chaos. There used to be a lot more chaos. There used to be a lot more skirmishing units. There used to be a lot more like, let's just huddle up around this flag and huddle up around that flag and huddle up around this flag. Whereas now, a lot of times we end up with this giant line battle where you're just trying to get this entire line in front of all the banks of flags, for whatever that is.
I wonder too if some of that is the change in terrain as well, because there's this stand of 3 spruce trees that I know I could use as a gateway to get behind people. It is my favorite stand. I know exactly where it is in those woods. Doesn't matter which res point. But the last couple of years we've fought there, you can't sneak past them anymore. They are too bushy. They are too big. And I don't know if maybe my waistline expanded, which it definitely has, or if the trees have just gotten a little too big through.
That's actually what I was thinking about in the gamification, is that the spruce line that used to be penetrable and like you could see through it, we didn't go in there for 8 years, 7 years. And those spruce trees grew together, and it went from being like, to like it's kind of, you have to look to see around the trees, to
so
like you could be walking in the middle of those trees and someone could be on the other side of the tree in front of you and you had no idea until, holy shit, you were in stabbing range. It is a huge change for the same terrain.
Yeah, because I remember there was one Pennsic many moons ago when we were in these woods before we went to the other woods and came back to these woods, where I had surgery about 6 weeks before Pennsic, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm going to be a wise person and not actually fight in the woods. I did fight at Pennsic, but I was like, you know what? I just had abdominal surgery. Maybe I shouldn't fight in these woods. So I was like, I'll marshal. And they had, one person from the east, one person from the mid on each of the flags to marshal. And however this was set up, and I don't think they were quite in a line. I think they were a little bit more, one closer to res, one in the middle, one close to the other res. I stood there with that mid-round marshal the entire time, and I think we saw 3 people. I don't even think they left anybody. I couldn't even tell you which side possessed the flag the whole time, but I don't even think they left anybody up there. I think they just kind of checked it as they went by back and forth to res. And, literally stood there for an hour just chatting with that mid-round marshal, being like, yep, nothing's happening here. Nobody's here. Nope, nobody. Again, exactly, yeah, pretty much. And that's just, we don't see that. That doesn't happen anymore. And again, I don't know if it's more people because of how the flags are placed, better commanding, and it's probably a combination of all of those things.
We're all learning, and it's been very interesting seeing the games develop as the command staffs, as the kingdoms, as the melee programs do as well. As we become more legitimate as a type of rapier. Okay, so I want to circle completely around and just kind of reiterate. So why do we all love the woods so much? What makes it so fun? Give me your top 3 reasons, Vindis.
Well, start off with, for years and years and years, I was still am a big nerd, and I played a 1515 Ranger Druid in 2nd edition D&D. So I'm like, I get to live out my nerdy Ranger fantasies here. So when I first heard about the woods, I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I get to be like a ninja in the woods. It's going to be awesome. And that's number 2 and 3 right there. I get to be a ninja in the woods. I get to cause havoc. I get to fight 3, 4, 5 people at a time. Sometimes I walk away. More often than I don't. But it's just so much fun. I get to push myself harder than I do in any other battle.
That is an excellent answer. All right, Magdalena, same question to you. Top 3 reasons you love the woods.
I love the woods. My first Pennsic, I was not yet an authorized fencer. And I went out to the woods to do some water bearing because I'm one of those happy volunteer-y type people. And I got out there and I saw everyone in the woods. And I mean, I had been fencing. I just had not been authorized yet because I had been fencing something like 4 weeks or something like that. And all I could think was and this was back when the East was doing things like, oh, you had to get your epee off first. And I had no offs at that time. So I was like, I need to make sure by this time next year, I have my heavy rapier off, because I need to go and fight in these woods. That was, I saw it and I was like, I need to do this. I need to do this. It's just very different, to actually have terrain to fence on, to actually, either, again, as Vindis was saying, being able to kind of go out there, cowboy, ninja, go through those woods, but also, again, to have that little bit of teamwork and strategy that because you can't see that whole field, because you need to figure out, okay, how am I going to get around these trees and how am I going to set up defenses or how am I going to go wreak havoc with, so much going on. And no instant awareness of what else is going on because, it's building up your own awareness and trying to sneak around other people's also, outsmarting them or getting someone else to distract them while you do something horrific.
That's my favorite.
I like horrific.
All right, Wistrick, I see you twiddling your thumbs up there. What's your number 1 reason for why you love the woods?
Chaos.
Chaos?
Yeah. And I mean, back to really Magdalena's point that it rewards local area army commanders who can read the situation and make the right call.
Mm-hmm.
The whether the line is set up ahead of these 2 trees or behind these 2 trees, if you're just like, yeah, well, we've got the flag, we're going to push forward, yay! And lots of people get into that mindset of just take the ground, take the ground, take the ground. But you can see those commanders who are looking and who are thinking and go, fall back 2 steps. 2 steps. And suddenly they've got this nice choke point in front of them, and everybody's just sitting there nice and pretty and happy. And it rewards that momentary. It rewards those people who can read the situation, who can make the call, who have the head on their shoulders for it. It rewards cardio, it rewards speed, but it rewards those commanders who can read the terrain, read the situation, and make the right call. And that's beautiful to watch it happen.
It is definitely much harder to band-aid in the woods. You can't take that step back on the back line and see what's happening on the open field to fix things. It is much harder to be a fixer on the large scale in that terrain. But I love the woods so much. All right, which is going to bring us into something a little bit more negative. What is the one thing that you hate about the woods? If you have one, you can totally punt and be like, I love it. And if you do punt, tell me why other people might hate the woods, like a reason you've heard probably most often. I'm going to start with Wistrick and let our panelists think, unless Vindis was volunteering there.
I had something.
Okay.
It's just that
You're a panelist. I'm a host. So
I was trying to give you time to think.
I mean, there is the fact that I love the woods and I think it's the best thing at Pennsic, hands down. But I have seen more people get injured due to whatever reason in the woods battle than any other battle. Like, I've seen more injuries in one woods battle than 3 Pennsics minus woods battles. All right. And all I can say is watch where you're stepping, people, because it's almost always ankle injuries. So that's the only really negative thing I can think of about the woods.
Yeah, definitely having good ankle support in the woods is very, very smart. If you have to go in modern tennis shoes, do it. Do not go in there in your tiny little slippy period shoes. It is a bad day. All right, Magdalena, what's the one thing you hate about the woods?
Still my answer, because that's what I was going to say something along similar lines.
You can totally agree.
I mean, again, he's right, and the number of ankle injuries. But again, also, I mean, I think it comes back to, the other types of injuries because people aren't pacing themselves correctly. You get people either on one side that are just completely exhausted and, can't handle themselves, and they have to occasionally literally be lugged out of the woods, but a lot of times literally they're, you find them sitting in res and you're like, are you okay? But on, of course, the other hand, you have the people that have that thing and they're still pushing, and then we get hard hits. Then we get, odd things happening. People getting a little bit overtired, as we can sometimes see at Pennsic. Because, I mean, I camp relatively close to those woods, so it's not that far of a distance for me. But it's for some people, it literally can be like miles to get up there. It's not an exaggeration, depending on where you live. And then you have to take into account, walking through the woods, or, even if your res is close on the close side, you still got to get out into the middle of the woods to find people. And it's really easy to get overtired.
And that's when I see most of the injuries too. It seems like it's a little bit into the woods. People are wearing down a little bit. They're not used to that kind of terrain or that kind of physical effort. So they're not pacing themselves.
I mean, and again, it's the also awareness of trees. Sometimes those trees can be, and I think it's the same thing. A lot of times it's because people are getting overtired and people are getting, worn out, and not as far as disoriented, but it adds up to the ankle injuries, people doing stupid things in trees, backing other people into trees. Injury can go up a lot.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with you, Magdalena. There's a difference when I'm at our home camp versus where I had to camp the last time I was at Pennsic. That was a freaking hike, man. Yeah, anything past vendors, and it's a marathon to get up there in the first place. But okay, so those are both really great answers, and you kind of already touched on my next question that was supposed to lead into that, which is we've talked about cardio, pacing ourselves, knowing our own limits, and really listening to our bodies when we get there. But are there any other ways that we could potentially improve the woods? And that's kind of a big ask.
More otter pops.
Food is always good. Cold food is always good.
Especially after the winter. Or people with minivans with the seats torn out so we all fit in it with the AC blasting. I know, Wistrick, I jumped the shark here, but I'm going to come back to this question because I do have kind of a follow-up here. Is there anything about the woods that just makes you absolutely cringe? I know for me, it's hearing that push at the push marks at the windows and watching everyone forget safety for the sake of speed, and watching everyone forget that these are our friends across the line from us, and watching it turn into the worst meat grinder at Pennsic other than trying to break like a kill pocket in an untouchable tower out on the field. Or La Rochelle. Oh, wait.
Broken field battle, the house.
No, La Rochelle. But is there anything that makes you guys cringe? And you can totally say no. The woods is perfect. I love it. The scenario is A+ every time, even when there are really useless chests or useful chests.
Useless chests. No chests.
Let's keep those chests out of there, okay?
Yeah.
I'll flashbacks to running the war point we had a number of years ago. So. And I was like, damn, Loophole is fast.
Damn it, Loophole.
Oh, God, I forgot. That overlaps here, too.
Yeah. It started with me and mines, but, you guys can have it.
He's ours now, but...
Hardly a fair trade. The mid got me. You guys got Thomas and Loophole. Wow.
I think we're doing pretty good.
The mid should send him a couple others.
But anyway, is there anything else that makes you guys just kind of go about the woods?
I mean, some of this is my commander pet peeves in that, again, I appreciate skirmishers and I appreciate people going out there and fighting, but sometimes that objective gets so lost. And again, definitely, as a commander, focus on how does this score? What do we need? What flags do we need? That sort of thing. And when people are putting effort in where there's no reason to be there, or people are not paying attention to what's going on, again, there's always people that just want to fight, but it's about kind of aiming those people generally in the right direction. So when they just go and fight, it's helpful. And sometimes you have those people that literally can be both harmful to the scenario, but also harmful to the fencing. They get a little too excited. They get a little bit dangerous sometimes. Some of this is planning ahead of time, getting people in the right spot, knowing who you can have on a flag and who you should have go off and be distracting and that sort of thing. But, when we say, advance to this spot and this is where you need to be, we're putting you there for a reason. We're not putting you there so you don't have fun.
Or punish you, yep.
Yeah. And as commanders, we should be aware of, oh, I can see that person got really impatient. Let's go find something to do for them next time. But you don't necessarily know all 150 people and what they should be doing and, that sort of thing. But when they're just not listening, and especially in a dangerous way, that's when it worries me. I don't want to be you didn't listen to me. I understand, but sometimes it's just counterproductive and or dangerous sometimes too.
I know I've definitely pulled people off the line and told them to go back to res and get the water. And I was not their favorite person in that instance because it is a long walk. But it definitely is something we need to see a little bit more of, even on the field battles, not just in the woods. The woods is just extra.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially if you have a town battle that goes on for, again, an hour and a half, situational awareness, figure out when you can take that break, when can you sit down, when you need to pull yourself. Some of this is going out there with a good group of people because it may not always be the commander that necessarily notices. It can be anybody. Know that you have 3 or 4 people that you guys are looking out for each other. it's great if you have a unit and a commander, and that's useful. But if you don't, there's always people to look out for you. And if you're more experienced, keep eyes out for other people that may be not aware of their fatigue.
Well, that's one of the things I like about the smaller woods now too. Is going back to the old woods, is it's easier to find those people too. So because when we moved to the old new woods, whatever, the first time I was just like, you'd wander back to res, you're like, I don't recognize anyone at this point because these woods are so big.
All right,
I can keep track of my people now, so I like it.
So, at least speaking for your kingdom's sort of army training discipline, do you teach folks that that it's okay for them to fall out of the line to rest?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I feel like it must be part of that. I know we definitely encourage that. I'm just trying to think I'm sure we do. But I feel like it's something now that you've pointed it out, that we need to really make sure we're pointing that out.
Because it struck me that that's the thing that I've seen as a spearman on the heavy field. But, and again, maybe it's Atlantia.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things we've
happen a lot.
I would say probably last 5 years, it's become a little more prevalent. Where we bring that up, we're like, know your limits. If you're tired, take a breather. If you're thirsty, take a drink. It's okay to stop. The war's still going to be there when you're done. Okay.
Yeah, and I think empowering whoever to call other people out too, just to be like, hey, you look really red, or you look really white. Something's not right. Go sit down. Hey, let's go get a drink. I think that's probably an important thing
or
to
just
keep.
You've been in there kicking ass for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Come back here by the flag with me.
Yeah.
Catch your breath.
You can always kind of con people into it too, and be like, hey, let's all rest up and let's go for this big push in 4 minutes after we've all had water. Yeah, it's great. Let's do that.
And
stroking egos is totally like even if they've been standing up there, just taking up space.
Hey, a lot of the times taking up space
ass.
is the correct strategy.
I
stand around and I take up space really well. It's super important.
I've never seen a whole kingdom afraid of me until I was on a line in a melee in a gap that was way too big for my tiny body.
Whoa.
Exactly.
I've got 2 swords, one for 1/5 of each of you.
Come at me, bros. And they just stood there, and I took a step forward, they took a step back, and it was like, Ted? But no, I definitely agree with that empowerment, and especially watching out for your friends, etc., and taking some of the pressure off people to be the best killing machine in a melee. You're not going to get your White Scarf Ogre, Bronze Ring, for 2 minutes in a melee. And having newer people.
What are you talking about? That's how I got my ogre.
Dragon's Tooth.
I have the video to prove it.
I literally got my Dragon's Tooth for 15 seconds in a melee.
I got 15 seconds in a melee.
Those awards are really the 10 seconds of melee award.
But that being said, taking some of that pressure to perform off of people can help them make better decisions, especially in a dangerous scenario like the woods. Because the woods is really fun, but the woods is really dangerous.
And something else to really teach your people is something we've talked about a lot on a local level anyways, is don't be afraid of somebody's belt or somebody's collar or the scarf on their arm. If somebody looks like they're being dangerous, somebody looks like they're tired, call them out regardless. I mean, we had a guy who his very first Pennsic, he literally reached out and grabbed a knight by the belt and pulled him off the line because he was acting a fool on the line, okay? And he's like, you need to go to res and you need to get some water. The guy gave him a little slack, but then he walked away. So
I've gotten in trouble for that, though. So just do it anyway and understand that you might get shit for it. But
yeah, he got a little shit for it, but he was like, that it was exactly what I needed to do. So
do it anyway, and then said, Vindis told you to do it.
Yeah, that's fine. Send them my way. I don't care.
Better than that
Wistrick,
person dropping.
If
or
they don't like Vindis, punt to Wistrick.
Better than that
But
person dropping or dropping someone else. Like, you know,
Yeah.
take that shit. Like, just, you know.
No, my line
like minute it takes that knight to walk to res, or that fighter to walk to res, is a minute that we're not all standing around in a general hold waiting for the MTs to show up.
Mine is almost always, this is Alexis speaking. This is not Bruce. This is not Alessandra Bruccioli. Go back to res now. So, yep, that's how they know they're in trouble.
Yeah,
all right.
What Mirabai said in chat is exactly how to deal with that.
For people who cannot see the chat right now, what Mirabai said.
Yeah,
sorry.
Nikon, get that quote up.
Yeah, Nikon. Yay! Technology that hides our panelists' faces, but they're still here. So
I'm short.
There we go.
All right. Thank you so much. And let's get that banner down. And now I'm going to have to ask you. So we talked about what we hated, and it kind of brought us into what cringe. But what's the craziest thing you've seen from a marshalite perspective in the woods? And start thinking about it as a combat perspective too. And this is not your no shit there I was story. This is just, if you're going into the woods tomorrow as a newer combatant, what are some of the things you can see? What's normal? What's not? Let's get newer fighters and even some of our experienced fighters a little bit of a gauge.
I've never marshaled the woods battle. Every time I tried to, I've been told I needed to fight in it. So
I told you about the one time I marshaled the woods battle where I literally stood in a corner chatting with some person for 2 hours. From a fighter's perspective and a marshal's perspective was the time that it was towards the end of the woods battle, and I think we were doing this is your final death kind of thing, and I was faced up against 3 guys, and it was the first battle in the old new woods, whatever you want to call them, and they pushed me, and right as I stepped back, one of them said, "Watch out!" And I did, I was already stepping back, and I did backwards somersault 2 or 3 times down this little hill, and I came up with my weapons ready to fight, but the marshal said hold, and we had to stop fighting. So we probably should have stopped fighting. But I was ready, okay? So yeah, expect people to take tumbles, expect somersaults, all right? Because I know more people that have somersaulted in the woods than have not, probably at this point.
I definitely did the splits over a log once, so I'm glad I was much more flexible then.
Yeah, I mean,
Magdalena.
Situational awareness is always a thing. And think about, okay, well, I mean, obviously, is this person okay? But do we need to really start yelling hold and freeze this entire battle? I mean, sometimes the answer is yes, and you do want to, everyone should obviously be empowered if somebody's seriously injured, but people will trip, people will fall, and, I'm pretty bouncy. I haven't quite gotten to that age where I fall over and break, and I'm hoping I'll have another 15 years before that starts becoming an issue, hopefully even longer. Think about, okay, I think in general it's good because I think people are quite often like, okay, we're going to pause the fighting here. Especially in the woods, you got to be really careful yelling that hold, because do we really need to bring this entire place to a stop? Is everybody fine? Check themselves, put themselves back in. And I think people are pretty good at marshaling themselves a lot of the times. And sometimes they're not. And all of a sudden, everyone is yelling hold. We have no idea what even's going on. Who started this? Who did, and hopefully some marshal can come and sort that out.
So one of the stories that has actually popped up in the comments now twice is the Porto Ninja.
Yeah, the Porto Ninja.
Which is probably the craziest marshalite story I've ever heard in the woods. other than people being injured, which we've touched on a little bit. And it's such a shame that it happens, and everyone needs to be a little bit better about that, gauging their needs and watching their feet. Ugh. But so the Porta Ninja, way back in the day, there used to be a Porta John, and I think there still is often stationed at the halfway point in the woods in case people need to go, because the woods is kind of a hike to get up and down that hill. And one year, a person hid themselves in the Porta John while the fighting was happening, and the fighting pushed past them, and they jumped out of the Porta John to go into the fray, into the back line. And I don't tell that story as well as some other people do.
Yeah, this was over in the woods by the B blocks, and the edges were rather ill-defined. Generally, after that, they tried to be like, no, like, you cannot fight around there, you can't, but clearly it was not as well-defined as it could have been at that time, and basically there was a Porta John in the middle of the field, because, I don't know, because, again, it was a long hike to get out there, but nobody really thought about, like, we probably should make sure the edge doesn't go there.
But yeah, that one was kind of a very strange martial concern. Don't use toilets to cheat the rules. That's a bad plan. That's how you end up in Marshal's court. All right. So this is not time for no shit there I was stories, but I want to ask, what's the craziest thing you've seen happen as a combatant in the woods? From other combatants, obviously. Oh. Yep, flavor text. Thanks, Mara. Can you only imagine all that blue juice? Oh, your armor?
On the door. Leave it on the door until the end of the battle. Like an hour and a half of people outside having fun while he's sitting there.
Don't call it juice. What else would you call it? I mean, come on. Anyway, I'm sorry. I broke our tech.
Yeah, our tech support now is no longer supported.
Crap about calling it juice. So my apologies. Thank you for the flavor text, Mara. It added to my very poor retelling of the story, and I appreciate you. Anyway, what's the craziest thing you've seen another combatant do? This is not a no shit there I was story. This is a don't do this story.
Ooh.
Other than Porta Ninja, apparently.
I mean, it's really hard to follow that.
Well, it's bad because then I did it too, so I don't know if it was once again, I keep going back to there. It was the first time we went to the Newer Woods, and there's this expansive woods where there was these trees that were felled, and there were just like cut off logs and fallen trees, and on the and running away from me is, I think it was Benjamin that was running away from me, because he was running towards more people, of course, and he
had to get his entire tour group gathered together.
Yeah, I believe he was jumping from tree stump to tree stump, from log to log to get over it, and I'm like, well, screw this, I'm going to do it too. So I did it too. In retrospect, it was very dumb. It's one of those things you should never do. All right, so don't do it. But in my mind, I'm like, this is epic as shit. Okay. And then I caught up to him and his friends, and then I died because there were way more of them than there were of me. But hey, we had our moment in the woods, and you shouldn't do it.
Don't make the no-no moments sound so fun.
They often are.
That's the problem with no-no movements. Is no-no moments are usually fun. So
yeah.
And so long as you don't have them in the middle of the line tripping over a log, you're probably around just a couple of people who are like, well, yeah, you dumbass, you shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
We're not calling hold. You're gonna pull yourself up? Didn't have.
Neither of us got hurt, but we very well could have gotten hurt that day. So it may have not been Benjamin either. I just know he was very short and fast and from Atlantia, okay?
Benjamin. That's straight up Ben.
Right.
Yep.
And like one of my No Shit There I Was stories is entirely about watching Ben lead that tour.
Well, we're going to let Magdalena talk first, Wistrik, and then we're probably going to loop over to No Shit There I Was, because the woods are the best for that. So, and I'm having such a good time, my face hurts.
I don't necessarily have anything specific, but I think it does come back to terrain. There are good uses of terrain. You know, I'm going to stand here and manage to take up a lot more space than I should have because there are trees here. And then there's bad uses of terrain that you're like, oh, you're just going to get everybody injured. And hopefully it's yourself and not everybody else. You know, fighting around trees, not like in between trees, but like,
people pull queuing their blades on branches.
Yeah, like it's one thing if you're standing there and you're using it kind of as the screen and you're using it to take up more space than you would, but people just, you know, really in there, like, yeah, use them to sneak around, but if you really can't see what's going on, or if you're really gonna hamper yourself by the branches or whatever the terrain is, or standing on a rock and like waving your hands around and being, you know, like, I don't know.
Oh, like years and years ago, like my first or second woods, I remember I had an exchange with Armand, and it was essentially there was a tree between us, and we kept ducking and diving around this tree trying to stab each other until we both stopped. We're like, this is really dumb. We shouldn't be doing this. And then we stepped away, and you know, we had a better time.
You know, there's a good question to be had here, Vindis. Why do all of your stories include the Atlanteans?
Because they're fast. That's why. And like I said, for some reason, I'm usually put on a run team. So they're usually the first people I meet. Okay.
So what you're saying is we may have met a while back, and
maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
I look like a heavy fighter most of the time. I wear big T tunics, and I'm tall and hefty.
It couldn't be that you're tall and do cardio. Like that definitely couldn't be a reason you're on a run team. Like never would have guessed that.
No, I did something. I run like 4 or 5 miles a day.
I didn't say. I just started that this year, but I don't do it quickly. All right.
Yeah, you're still faster than most of us. You're Italian. You have the third best Italian. I'm sorry, the third best cardio. You're on the run team. Anyway, so from what I'm hearing from all of this, there's really for this panel, a love-love relationship with the woods. But some of the ways we could really make it better are training people how to be a little more self-aware and hopefully have some common sense about not, I don't know, pool cueing their blades through trees or not running over top of logs, no matter how Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon epic it looks, Vindis.
Yeah, in my head it looks amazing still. So.
Not hiding in porta-johns. And taking people on epic adventures is kind of the goal here without them getting hurt. So if you've watched our show before, you know how we're going to wrap this up. And
actually, I have a question.
Oh.
How many of your melee training events involve woods battles in your kingdoms?
None anymore, really. The last time we had anything like that was Chaos the Caravan.
We had one at the war camps in 2019 as well, because Northern Kentucky, one of the event sites, had a tiny little strip of woods. And what we found is even at a tiny ass event in Northern Kentucky, people get heated in uneven terrain.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, I can think of one event where we really have actual woods to play in, and I have to admit that I haven't always even gone up in them. I mean, I have in the past. I don't want to say never, but there's definitely been. I can't think of the last time I actually went in the woods at the one event where we pretty consistently have woods, and it runs into the same problem that, if it happened to be raining beforehand, like, yeah, maybe we're fine fencing, out in the middle of the fields, but we're not going to go into the woods because it's a mud pit. That sort of thing. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that we really I can think of.
Such a hard thing to train because finding events spaces with woods is not something we can do very often.
And I think that's where Atlantia, at least again back when I was there, the March event defending the gate, the April event night on the town. There were a couple of other events where generally there was consistent melee training and woods melee training.
Yeah, I was gonna say
which is why they you chuck them in there and they're just we're gonna run around and do stupid shit that will get everybody else injured.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of melee training. I mean, obviously this is going to be very area dependent because, once we hit, you might luck out and be able to get
something. Have to have woods.
Oh, wait a minute. What am I talking about? There's definitely another event. Wait a minute. The other one, hello, where
Is it 100 Minutes War?
That's what I can't believe I couldn't think of 100 Minutes. The two events where we have Great Northeastern, which is generally like 2 weeks before Pennsic, that is often wet and we don't go in the woods. And for whatever reason, I think it's because there's a lot of fencing at that event. The woods, for some reason, never seems to get a huge turnout. But the other event we have is 100 Minutes War, which is usually just before it gets freezing, and sometimes there's snow on the ground. It has definitely happened, and this is usually November, so it's usually the weekend before Thanksgiving. So that's kind of our biggest training that I think we have a lot of melee in the woods, and I don't know why I couldn't think of that because literally it was, probably the last giant melee that we did before everything. Yeah.
I'm a little jealous. That site is one of the best woods battle amalgamations outside of Pennsic I think I've ever been to. No offense to Gulf Wars, but that was so fun.
The ravine doesn't really compare.
No.
Yeah.
Nope, because you can see everything.
It's not much of a woods.
Yeah.
It's scrubland.
Trees.
Yeah.
It's a wooded park.
Yeah, when I was at Gulf, I had to leave too early to actually play in the woods. The ravine down there. So
my biggest problem was I forgot there wasn't DFB. So
that would hurt me.
I was like, I'm in the backfield. They're like, ignore him. I'm like, fuck.
I mean, you can sit there and make a lot of noise because you get somebody who's not ignoring you.
Yeah.
But somebody who was like, I'm gonna go fight this person. You're like, okay, one less person on the line.
You join up, you come up in the middle of their line and go, reinforcing on the right, on the left. And you take a step forward and go, on your right. And they go, huh? And then you have line engagement.
Don't take advice from Wistrick. Wistrick is
No,
not
legit,
good at
that's why I've done that, and that's why line engagement is a stupid concept. Because
Don't take advice from Wistrick.
that
All
was
right.
great.
All right, Wistrick, was that a sufficient answer to your question? Can we move on to the juicy
yes.
bits?
No, I think it
Can we get no shit there I was stories?
Yes, but first we should remind the audience that after No Shit There I Was, Q&A. So start dropping your questions into the comments section so that after we hear the No Shit There I Was stories from our panelists, we can also hear answers to your questions. What about the Pennsic Woods Battle? What about Woods Battles? Do you still want to know? What have we not touched upon? Thank you.
Keeping me away from my fun, Wistrick. All right. Nikon, you want to drop the banner for us so that we can see their lovely faces?
As they tell their stories.
All right. I warned them in advance that they have to prepare them. Wistrick and I didn't think it would be a problem because all of our no shit there I would stories kind of come from the woods. So, who wants to go first?
You can go first.
I'm actually bad at this because usually I'm relatively. I mean, especially since I think I already kind of told half of it. But we're out in the B block woods, and it is just chaos. I'm not even sure I could tell you. There must have been flags somewhere, and everything. Unlike now, there isn't a line. There isn't a let's find the front. There isn't. You'd find these pockets around the flags, and again, this was quite a while ago. So at some point, Natalia, and I'm relatively green at this point, is like, "You're coming with me," and we're dashing all around these woods. I don't even know what we were doing other than making chaos, and this is when we pretty much accidentally stumbled upon the other res, because I think I didn't know where I was. I didn't hadn't figured out in the woods. I was just kind of following around creating chaos, and we're like, oh, okay, I guess we're kind of really turned around here, and had to go back and figure out hey, we were kind of holding everybody at res. It wasn't just us. There were enough people that were that far up that eventually the marshals had to just kind of be like, hey, you guys just need to let them out of res. We weren't really right on it, but it was close enough. And the way the exit was, that there really wasn't a way around. And we didn't even do it on purpose. We just were like, oh, there's people here. Let's create chaos. And, oh, that's the other res. Yeah, I guess maybe we'll go find some other place to create chaos.
So you held off the entire side with you.
Yeah, sure, exactly. We held off the entire side, me and Natalia. Exactly.
Until the marshals had to ask you to move because you were breaking the scenario.
Absolutely. Just like that.
Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. That is a hilarious story. And the picture of that in my mind, especially also being a short lady fencer, makes me very happy and giggly. All right, Vindis, you're up.
All right, so this is a story from 2011, actually. And I'm actually going to steal it a bit. I'm going to paraphrase from Master Kai's after action report, because my no shit there I was story made it to an after action report after.
Did you bring documentation?
I did. So these are Master Kai's words. I spent the entire woods battle defending the flag at the bottom of the hill with the rest of the Thieves of Hearts, the occasional surprise Vindis, our heavy crossover friends, and a number of other red tapes that came through. And we seem to be facing off against the entire kingdom of Aethelmark. I was fortunate enough to be able to rely on the experienced melee fighters to steer my groups. We had a really good chain of communications going with Tedesco, Mr. Christian, and other thieves working with other fighters to organize and deploy where we could best implement our plan. For most of the battle, I only had to step in and line myself to reinforce a thin area. And then there was surprise Vindis. Every time it looked like Aethelmark might be able to take advantage of a drop-off in the flow of fighters returning from res, Vindis showed up like Batman. He'd come sneaking around the hill as the Aethelmartians started to push Group 1 back. When this happened, I would tell Group 2 to give ground and have Group 1 split to retreat into narrow gaps to reinforce Group 2. Meanwhile, Vindis would roll up on their flank into their backfield and mow them down like wheat. It was a sight to behold. Vindis did a great job of watching us and communicating by hand signal and always knew exactly where we needed to go. It was awesome. And I don't remember it being quite that epic, but hey, man, Kai's pretty observant guy, so I'll take his word for it. I was Batman for one war. And they did get all 3 points on that flag, and I think we were outnumbered 3-2 that war. So it was a pretty good show on that day.
Oh my goodness. I love those war stories. It makes me always makes me feel good.
Yeah, it was nice after that. Anton ripped off one of the stars from his shoulder because he was general that year and handed it to me. So
Aw,
yeah, it was nice.
I love that tradition. But all right. We don't seem to have any questions from the audience, so I'm totally going to pad this out by saying, hey, Wistrick, you got any no shit there I was stories from the Woods Battle? You're muted.
Is he?
I think he was.
I am. I
okay.
have 7.
Okay, pick one. Pick one
Just one?
for now.
I don't know. Okay. Okay, so I'll pick the one that is most fun, and because Trap is behind that screen behind you, and Maura is in the comments, I think it's going to be the one that involves them, which was Pennsic 2018, which is the last one that I got to make it to. Trap and I were on the skirmish because I was Merdier's Kingdom of Army of One, which meant that I told our noble allies that I had the right flank, and don't worry about it, Merdier's would cover it.
Yeah, he showed up to our command meetings and drank all our booze.
And I would totally be like, yeah, right flag. Merdier's has got that. Atlanta, you want to back us up on this? You okay? Cool, great, thanks. So yeah, that's just don't let Wistrick into your command meetings at Pennsic these days. But Trap rolled up on the right side with me, and admittedly, like, there were other mid-realm forces going up there with us, but we had Ogadai, Remy, Natalia, a couple of other white collars that I didn't even know their names, all defending that, and then like the mid-realm army on the right side was outnumbered 3-1, and it just sucked tailpipe. And so that was the first half of the battle, was just Trap and me and all of the mid-realm going up there and kind of striving nobly and accomplishing nothing. And we got to, and so we get to the midpoint break, everybody come back to res, and Trap and I are there, and we're like, that kind of sucked. And we realized, and Maura, mid-realm general, who's not commanding this battle, is like, yeah. And the three of us go look at each other and we're like, let's make sure this second half doesn't suck, at least for us. And so at Leon, we walk up to the flag, and then we turn right and walk down a 45-degree slope towards the road. And we start walking towards the enemy backfield, still within bounds, because we didn't reach the road. And Ogadai is up there watching us going, and I believe at one point Trap goes, hey, Ogadai, how you doing? And we are 40, 50 feet behind their backfield before Ogadai goes, and sends like 4 people down chasing after us, but they're now coming down from their line. So they're behind us, coming up behind us, 40, 50 people. Again, like we were 50 feet back behind their lines. They're running down the hill, and it's bad hill, it's bad footing, and lots of trip hazards. And we're all like, but first I said, Maura, you got this? And we didn't wait for her answer, which I felt bad about for a second. And then Trap and I both just haul ass because we're lanky, long-legged guys. We could get away with it. And Maura fought bravely and nobly. And
Mara. It's Mara.
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 It's an O.
I have used her name so many freaking times.
I don't Gaelic well. I'm Wistrick. We're Anglo. We didn't Gaelic well. Yeah. So Mara. My apologies. She nobly played the rear guard action, and Trap and I disappear into their backfield. And so then, like, we're back there, and we're just like, it's time to take some shit out on some people. And so I come up on their res line, just people feeding back from res. I'm like, young Wistrick would have been an asshole in this situation. Older wise Wistrick. I'm not on your team. I'm red tape. And they say, we're not. And so then I got to have some fun with them, and then I got to go on past their bodies, and got to come up behind my friend Donovan and say, "Who's your daddy?" And Donovan spins around just like, I'm gonna punch whoever the hell this is. Oh, Wistrick! God damn it! He goes and marches off to his rest point, and I'm like, well, I've just killed out like Donovan. I'm like, who's commanding North Shield? So I run over to Cesar, who's the North Shield commander, and I come up behind on his side. I'm like, hey Cesar, how you doing? And he turns and looks at me and looks back to his line. And he looks back to me. Dagger. And like by this point, like I was we'd started on one end of the line. I was, and, I hadn't killed anybody except like a couple of people that I knew. But I'm like, I'm gonna go kill Atlantia. Yeah, I'm gonna go kill Atlantia because they're all the people that I used to know years ago. And I fall in with them, like their reinforcements coming up, and I'm walking, and I realize that the people around me have stopped, and they all turn towards me. Like, hi guys. And then they kicked my ass. But apparently during all this time, Trap went up to the flag that we had been skirmishing in front of for the first half of the battle and flipped it. And then just stood back there and waited for anybody to notice.
Wait, no. This is where the story gets unbelievable. Trap did the objective?
Yeah, I know, but because it was a dickish thing for him to do at the moment. Like, then it becomes believable. Like it was a great way of giving like the middle finger to all of our friends on the East Kingdom side. Then it's totally Trap. But yeah, like depending on when he's telling it, how many margaritas he's had, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever. He's just standing there next to the flag with the East Kingdom defending a flag held by the Mid-Realm. And he had a great damn time. And we all died and, rallied back at Rez. And Mara, we appreciated Mara, and she did not appreciate us. And so we did it again.
Was this the year she had finished her Hobbit?
This was her last. Yes. This was like stealth Mara. It was great. Like, so she could just. Nobody knew who she was. I didn't know who she was until she took her mask off, and I was like, oh.
She has an excellent disapproving face.
Yeah, she.
Mm-hmm. I've been on the wrong end of that one or two times.
Yeah, that was like, that was the most recent Woods Battle, and that was a pretty epic Woods Battle. Just that. It was great. Like, we were getting our asses kicked. We beat our head against a brick wall that we couldn't do jack against. And it was fun.
Trap.
7 seconds. Really, he needs more margaritas, apparently, because he's telling the truth.
I think he's drinking vodka tonight, so he's actually being kind of humble. Vodka. But anyway, I have such a soft spot in my heart for the woods. And
it makes me sad to hear that story, because there definitely have been times in the past couple of years where I know exactly where you're talking about sneaking through. And there's just too many people that know it's there now. Like, you just timing and everything. Like,
it was the year before. Like, it was 2 Pennsics ago. It was like people know it's there, and they just watched. That's what it was just like, we shouldn't be allowed to be here.
Maybe you just gotta try that, because there definitely were times where I'm like, I'm walking here, and I always felt like somebody was like, and maybe you could just go beat up that one somebody, but it always felt like, last year, the last Pennsic, whatever that is still the last year or whatever, even though we were just, so the East was very outnumbered, so there really wasn't a lot of sneaking around in the woods that we could do.
Yeah, the shoe on the other foot is always kind of a weird.
It happens, It happens.
Yeah,
I was just like, let's go back and create chaos. Oh, there's no way to get there.
Yeah, I would prefer to be outnumbered instead of outnumbering you guys, because I like target-rich environments, but I understand how much it sucks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just really wanted to like get behind everyone, and I just could not find
An opening.
Yeah.
No, it was really a line fight last time. And that's actually something I miss about B Block's Woods is it was definitely more of like running around in the woods with your friends and you can't find each other.
Yeah, no, that again, I agree that it has become, and I don't know how to fix that. I mean, thinking about how to position flags maybe, but then you just end up with lines kind of canted in a different direction because
it really is just the width of the field. Like if you can stand hand to shoulder across the entire field with your army, it's a line fight. It doesn't matter how much
there's enough people that we can do that, and maybe we're just a little bit smarter than we used to be that will do that. And we have the people that don't want to do that, and we still can go all the way across, even though we have however many people that aren't standing in the line.
Yep. I still remember my first Pennsic, and it was definitely not as line fighty as it is now, which is
I mean, so my second Pennsic, when I did go up and fight in the woods, I remember going out there with Quinn and Mike the Goon. I have no idea if you guys know Mike the Goon, and it's little on me and my big old buckler, because I mean that's how I've always been. And I'm like, I am not gonna do anything, but I'm gonna parry the hell out of everything coming to these two big dudes that are with me. And I'm just gonna keep up with them the best as possible, and we're gonna create chaos, and I'm just gonna sit there and be their shield. Because, if I'm standing next to Quinn, I am probably not close enough to hit that other person. Probably. So, that's always my downside when things get too line-like, is that I just can't. They're over there.
Nope. We're losing a Vindis.
I have a dog.
Surprise, no Vindis.
But that's definitely how I remember that first one I actually fought in. That just chugging through the woods with Quinn and all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of followed him around.
Oh, more kitties.
And if there's Vindis pulling another animal out of his magical hat. I apologize. I have no chill when it comes to people's animals. I'm just like, cat, other cat.
But the woods battles are like, they're great for that. Like, hey, okay, I know these two people. I'm just going to follow them through.
That's how my
two big guys. They got to know what they're doing, and they'll make sure nothing horrible happens to little me at the time.
That's how Rapier Melee got me hook, line, and sinker, was Davius in my very first Pennsic Woods battle, grabbing me and saying, hey, little sister, we're going to go kill some shit in his gold lame, and we did. We got DFB banned that war. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, so no, wait. I got my notion there. I was story.
Oh, go for it.
No.
Oh, no.
How did you get DFB banned in the woods battle?
It was my very first year at Pennsic, my very first Pennsic. I was a freshly made cadet. I had only been fencing for probably about 6 months. I had gone to Gulf Wars. I had gotten my feet wet that way. Get to Pennsic, do the field battle, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. This is kind of overwhelming, but it's really cool. Get to do all the town battles, go, oh, yeah, this is awesome. Like, okay, all right, whatever. There are a lot of people, a lot of swords. Get to the woods and get completely lost. Die like my first engagement. Just not having a great time because I don't know where anything is. And that's when Davius, who was still in the East at the time, and I was still fighting for the East at the time because I still lived there, grabbed me by my scruff and said, hey, baby girl, we're going to go kill some shit, or little sister, or whatever. I think it was baby girl, because it made me go, oh, Davius, okay. This isn't weird. And he took me down the deer path in the B blocks, still in bounds, and back to the back line. And we started just wrecking shit, DFB down the line. He made sure I wasn't shotgunning, and he taught me how to do it. And they all turned and they went, "There's Davius," in that way that Davius has. And they all started chasing him, but there's like 5'0" me in my green doublet who still looks brand spanking new. I still had stripy socks over my like cheap ass leather boots I got from some Halloween store. Like it was still like beginner garb. They just ignored.
Don't knock the stripy socks.
No, these weren't even the real stripy socks. These were like volleyball socks that I had bought because I had seen people wearing stripy socks and went, this would be fine. So they left me alone, and I'm in these woods, and I'm like, maybe I should keep doing this, or maybe I should try to find res. And I got totally lost. And I saw this guy, and he had two people with him in the back line, and I had no idea who they were, but they looked like this person that I had met earlier in the week, and I thought they were my friend. Like, I thought it was someone else. So I did what Davius told me to do, which was, if they're your friend, you can be like, "Who's your daddy?" Or you can jokingly be like, "Shh, shh, shh. Hey, you're dead." And so I was a little more flippant than I should have been to these people in this dragon applique with these little crowns all over their outfits and these little stars on their shoulders. And I DFB'd the king of the mid and his general, the heavy fighting general. So the big general, not the rapier general, like the knighty general, and his personal guard, without knowing who it was. And I wasn't polite. I did not do it the right way. Do not go up to people and say, "Who's your daddy?" unless you are sure it's your friend. I was pretty sure, but I was not 100% sure, unless you can identify them.
What did the crowns mean? I've only been in 6 months.
I had no clue. I had no concept that was the king and the prince and the general and the personal guard. Like, it just didn't seem important at the time. But so after all that happened, like 6 hours later was when they made the announcement that DFB was now turned off for the war. There will be no more DFB at this Pennsic.
That wasn't, trust me, that wasn't just you. He was very against DFB because he considered it not honorable.
Yeah, well, and then I happened, and it was just the extra nail on the head that I went up behind him and said, "Who's your daddy?" And I can't. I hope he forgot about it, because he didn't see.
No, he never forgot about it. Trust me.
It didn't seem to register on his face that it had been me.
That's just his face.
Well, I'm hopeful, because when I was in command meeting, I'm hopeful still. When I was in command meetings and he came up and introduced himself, he didn't seem to know who I was. And my garb has changed a bit since then, and I'm no longer with the East, so. But yes, that's my no shit there I was story, and it's all Davius's fault, so I'm gonna blame him.
Sounds reasonable.
So related, the Order of Defense, some representatives from across the known world have been getting together on Monday nights the past year, usually just to drink and read bedtime stories. But of late, they've been making it useful, like reviewing the new rules that came out last year, as everybody should.
Mm-hmm.
The rules around DFB used to say a short, courteous phrase. Now they say a short phrase.
Wistrick, don't you know there is no space on the fencing field for innuendo of any kind?
None. Absolutely none. You should just thrust, and you should always wear protection, and always make sure that your sword has a rubber tip.
I'm sorry, and maintain control of your unit at all times.
Yeah, yeah. Just play the units episode.
Because we're 12. Anyway, I want to thank both of our panelists for being with us tonight. This was so much fun. I don't think I have smiled this hard in a hot minute. My cheeks hurt. And I wanted to say thank you for both of your expertise and your insight. And I am so glad we got to hang out for this couple of hours and the half hour leading up to get you guys set and ready to go. So thank you for being here tonight.
It was
You're
awesome.
welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you to Nikon, our tech support. Thank you to Kal-bardr for hosting us.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, the post-show Zoom link is in the chat. Is in the Facebook comments. So come join us. There are probably some more No Shit There I Was stories that other people have. I know I have more.
And we'll probably be there for the next hour or so. So, what in the hell?
That's my souvenir from the Woods Battle.
Well, I am looking forward to that story behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. And good night. Nikon, take us out.